The fire in your hearth burns low, its light a final weary pulse against the coming dawn. Long shadows dance on the wattle and daub walls, twisting like troubled spirits. Outside, the village sleeps, but it is not a peaceful slumber. It is the shallow, fitful rest of those whose days are a currency spent on survival. You hear a cough from the neighboring hut, thin and ragged in the quiet, and you know the fear that follows it. And you realize, with a cold certainty that settles deep in your bones, that their need is the only currency you will ever truly possess here. And you are left to wonder, standing in the weak sun, what will they need you to be the next time the shadows fall? The rough hemp rope bites into the calluses of your hands. Each pull a familiar groan of wood against stone. The bucket is heavy today, full to the brim, the cold of the deep earth radiating through the oak staves. You heave it onto the well's moss-slicked parapet, your breath misting in the gray morning air. For a moment, you don't move to unhook it. You lean over, seeking only a moment of rest, and find yourself caught. Down in the dark circle, a face stares back. It floats on the black, still water, a stranger wearing your skin. The rain does not fall, it seeps. It seeps from a sky the color of lead, into the heavy wool of your cloak, into the soil of the churchyard, until the ground groans under your feet. Each step toward the church is a negotiation with mud that tries to steal your worn leather shoes. Ahead, two figures stand as monuments to misery. One is Jakob, the gravedigger, his back a permanent curve, his shovel a relentless pendulum slicing into the earth. The other is Father Michael, the true physician, is not you with your knowledge of root and leaf, but the farmer who guides the plow, the sun that warms the soil, the rain that falls at the right time. Health, you realize, is not a matter of medicine. It is a matter of bread. We believe we are separate from the soil, that our bodies are our own kingdom. But you see now that we are merely extensions of the land we walk upon. When the land sickens, we sicken with it. When the fields starve, we starve. You smear the paste onto the wound, your movements slow and deliberate. It will dull the fire in his hand. It will bring the mercy of sleep. But as you work, your mind is on the other pot, the one tucked deep inside your leather satchel, wrapped in its own cloth like a cursed relic. You never touch it without washing your hands, before and after. Inside lies a darker magic, henbane. You can picture the veined, hairy leaves so clearly you can almost feel their poison on your skin. The christening celebration happens without you. The laughter from the alehouse is a language from another country. You live on the fringe, a necessary ghost haunting the edges of their joy. They need your hands, but never your company. You are the most important secret they keep, the quiet paradox of their lives, and the loneliest soul in their world. It is the sharp, deliberate snap of a dry twig under a heavy boot. Someone is there, watching you from the edge of the darkness, and you do not know if they have come for a cure or for a reckoning. The fear of God and sickness has momentarily subsided, and the fear of a festering burn has taken its place. They do not trust you. They have simply remembered that you are useful. You look out at the village, at the figures moving with slow, pragmatic purpose, mending fences, clearing paths, resuming the unending work of survival. You were their devil. Now you are their apothecary. You are whatever they need you to be. The chicken struggles in your grip, a reminder of the raw, simple, brutal economy of this life. Its warmth is real. Its fear is real. Thomas has not banished the fear that surrounds you. He has simply given it a new focus. In defying the village to honor his debt, he has drawn a line not around you, but between you and them. This bread is sustenance. This cheese is strength. But this kindness, this heavy, silent, iron-forged kindness, is also danger. He has not saved you from the wolves. He has only chosen to stand with you among them. You wonder if the darkness they fear was there all along, asleep, and has only just now begun to wake. And in that moment, the truth lands on you with the weight of a burial shroud. You are not a healer fighting a disease. You are a bystander to a famine. Your enemy is not a malevolent spirit or an imbalance of the four humors. It is poverty itself. The true hospital is not your small cottage with its smoky hearth and drying herbs, but the Lord's stone-built granary, its doors barred and its stores full. Her knuckles are white where she clutches a wooden crucifix to her chest, her eyes wide and dark with a terror that has nothing to do with her son's wound and everything to do with the woman tending it. You are her only hope, and also her deepest fear. The splinter is out. A single bead of black blood follows it. You wipe it away and reach for your pots. The first is cool and smooth, sealed with beeswax. You break the seal and the scent of poppy and honey fills the air. A sweet, earthy promise of relief. In a world held together by belonging, the farmer to his furrows, the smith to his fire, the priest to his flock, you belong only to the crisis of the moment. Your very identity is a mirror reflecting their pain. You are the village's most intimate stranger. You have seen their shivering, naked bodies by the light of a single tallow candle. You have heard deathbed confessions meant only for God's ears. You have held their children, slick and new, in the breathless seconds between one world and the next. Yet, you never hear your name called for the wedding feast. The soil is dark and rich on your hands, clinging in the creases of your knuckles and under your nails. It looks like dried blood. You look out at your work, a dozen small rows, perfectly straight, each a promise whispered into the coming night. A testament to a hope that is deeper and more stubborn than any fear they can muster. The air grows cold. The shadows of the trees stretch like long, skeletal fingers across your garden. From the edge of the woods, a sound, not a bird, not a fox. Her fingers brush yours for a fraction of a second. There is no spark of connection, no current of understanding. It is the touch of a merchant and a customer, a transaction. She clutches the pot to her chest as if it were a holy relic and turns, almost running back to her hut without another word. You stand there, holding the chicken. Its heart hammers against your hands, a frantic, tiny drumbeat. This is not forgiveness. This is not acceptance. It is a return to utility. That single, tangible memory, the weight of his child, alive, in his arms, is more real, more solid, than 100 phantom demons in the fog, or 1,000 whispers from his neighbors. You hold the bread to your chest. In a world governed by superstition, a simple gesture of trust is a revolutionary act. He has not offered you charity. He has made an alliance. He has remembered a human connection, forged in a moment of shared, terrified vulnerability, and chosen it over the collective madness. A new kind of cold, sharp and clear, cuts through the warmth of the gift. You search your own eyes. You are trying to fill the sea with a thimble. Stepping out of the darkness of her hut, you squint against the weak, white light of the afternoon. The entire village wears the same expression as Elena. The blacksmith's hammer is silent. The children do not chase geese in the lane. They sit, huddled against the wattle and daub walls, their faces pinched and old. You see it everywhere. The sores that will not heal, the slow, shuffling gaits, the eyes that seem to look through you, fixed on some middle distance of gnawing want. It is a river of words, ancient and smooth as stones, a chant your grandmother pressed into your memory like a thumbprint. It is for the boy, a current to carry his mind away from the pain. But you feel the mother's gaze on you, like a physical weight. In the flickering gloom of her cottage, where smoke and fear hang thick as wool, you know what she hears. Not a lullaby, not a soothing rhyme. She hears an incantation. On the single warped shelf, clay pots of salves and ointments stand in a messy line. Each one is a scar remembered, the angry red of a blacksmith's burn, the weeping rash on a newborn's thigh, the deep gash from a poacher's careless knife. There is a strange, precise order to your clutter, for your entire life is an act of preparation for the next disaster, the next scream in the dark. You are the silent, unseen response, rushing to the site of the wound, working in the dark to knit flesh and cool blood. They fear you because you understand the frail mechanics of their bodies better than they do. They fear you because you walk the border between the world of the living and the world of the herbs, the strange and silent kingdom that can kill as easily as it can cure. You straighten up, your spine cracking in protest. Inside is a dark, thick salve of comfrey, yarrow, and pig fat. It smells earthy and green, the smell of healing. When you emerge, she finally looks at you. Her eyes are not repentant. They are not grateful. They are simply desperate. It is the same look she had when her child was being born. It is a look of pure animal need. The exchange is made in silence. She pushes the frantic, warm body of the chicken into your arms, and you press the cool, heavy clay of the pot into hers. The community that casts you out, that starves you with its fear, is also the community that contains Thomas. A mob is made of whispers, of glances, of shared unspoken terror. But a bond is made of something else. It is made of a wife's screams in the night, the terror of a difficult birth, and the first shocking cry of a newborn son. Thomas's memory is longer than his fear. The silence gives their fear a space to grow, not just in their hearts, but in yours. It is a poison seeping through the walls. You find yourself replaying every successful remedy, every fever that broke, every wound that closed without putrefaction. Was it skill, or was it luck? A terrible, unnatural luck. Their suspicion was a spark, but it is your own solitude that fans it into a flame inside your soul. You walk past the small, cloudy piece of polished metal that serves as your mirror, and you pause, staring. You look for the witch they see. Inside are 3 dried apple rings, leathery and brown, and a sliver of salted fish, its scent sharp and precious. This is your food for the next 2 days. You break one of the apple rings in half and press the piece into Alina's dry hand. Her fingers, weak as a baby's, struggle to close around it. Her eyes watch you, not with gratitude, but with the profound, listless exhaustion of a creature that has forgotten the feeling of a full belly. It is, a gesture of profound futility. The boy's whimper is a thin, sharp thread against the low rumble of your own voice. His hand, slick with sweat and grime, is so small in yours. A splinter, driven deep and angry beneath the nail, has turned the flesh around it into a swollen, purple mound that pulses with a life of its own. As your fingers work, gentle but firm, you murmur. It is not a prayer to a Christian God, not a plea to a saint whose name you've half forgotten. You run a finger along a brittle stalk of lavender, its perfume a ghost of summer, meant to soothe a troubled mind. Beside it, chamomile, for the baby who won't stop crying 2 lanes over. And the mullein, its woolly leaves still holding the memory of the rattling cough that took Old Man Hemlock last winter. This is not a home. Others have homes. They have sturdy chairs and a place for every soul. You have a workshop, a sanctuary, and a prison, all within the same 4 walls. They may blame the souring of the milk on a glance from you. Let them. You will still cultivate their cures. You will still prepare for their fevers and their wounds. This is not forgiveness. Forgiveness is a luxury for priests and saints. This is purpose. You are not just the village healer. You are its hidden anatomy, its secret immune system. When the body of your community is gashed open by an accident, or invaded by a fever that burns through a family like wildfire, you are the antibody they do not understand. He was near the fire, the pot. She gestures vaguely with her chin toward her hovel. His arm. She doesn't need to say more. You know the particular misery of a child's burn, the way the pain sings and sings, refusing all comfort. You know the terror in a mother's eyes when she has nothing to soothe it. You simply nod, stepping back inside your hut. The air within is still thick with the scent of dried herbs, of smoke, of a solitude that has become its own kind of companion. You retrieve a small clay pot. He simply turns, his broad back a sheer wall of defiance against the unseen eyes of the village, and walks away. The set of his shoulders is a statement. This one is mine, it says. This debt is paid. You are left alone in the fading light, the impossible warmth of the loaf seeping into your frozen fingers. It is the most profound warmth you have ever felt. You sink to your knees, the rough roots forgotten at your side. This is the other side of the coin. The woman they came to when God or the priest seemed too far away. Without their need, who are you? The silence in your small, dark cottage presses in, forcing you to listen to a voice you've never heard before. The whisper of doubt. It starts small, a flicker of a terrible thought in the lonely hours before dawn. You stare at the herbs hanging from the rafters. Comfrey, yarrow, St. John's wort. Did they work because of your knowledge, or because of something else? Something darker. A weeping sky that turned the fields to soup and beat the stalks of wheat and rye into the mud until they drowned. The harvest was a ghost of what it should have been. The grain they managed to save is thin and damp, already showing the faint, dusty blush of mold. Now, winter holds the village in its fist, and the granaries are little more than echo chambers. You reach into your own pack, past the carefully bundled herbs and linen bandages. Your fingers find the small, cloth-wrapped parcel you guard so jealously. This is the quiet, uncelebrated heart of medieval innovation. Not a single grand discovery, but a truth uncovered by the slow, painful accumulation of ghosts. You turn back to the boy. The firelight catches the wet gleam of the wine on the tip of your father's knife. The mother has stopped breathing. Her entire world, her entire soul, focused on your hand holding the blade. She has entrusted you with everything she has. And in the suffocating silence, broken only by the boy's whimpering breaths, you bring the cold, clean steel to his hot, swollen skin. Your cottage is where the village gives up, unraveling into the wet, dark fields. The rain finds a new way in tonight, a slow, patient drip near the hearth that makes the packed earth floor sigh. It's a small sound in a small room, but you hear everything. The walls, a humble prayer of woven branches and mud, seem to breathe with the damp. From the low rafters, bunches of dried herbs hang like sleeping bats, their faint scents weaving through the wood smoke. Fought with a root, fought with a flower, every pressed seed is an act of faith, not faith in heaven, but faith in the earth. Faith that there will be a spring after this long, hard winter. Faith that the sun will return, and the most terrible faith of all, a quiet, certain belief that there will be more sickness, more pain, more grief, and that you will be here to meet it. This is the ultimate defiance. They may whisper your name in the market, their eyes sliding away from yours. They may cross themselves as you pass. She is not looking at you, but at the ground just in front of her feet, as if counting the steps that separate her world of suspicion from your world of remedies. She carries a chicken. It's a scrawny thing, its feathers ruffled, its beady eyes darting about with a panic that mirrors the village's own. She holds it tight against her chest, its legs clutched in her fist. When she finally stops before you, the silence stretches, pulled thin and tight. She still won't meet your gaze. "My boy," she says, her voice a dry rustle of leaves. It is a dream you had forgotten how to have. You look up, your throat too tight to speak, tears stinging your eyes. He hasn't moved. His gaze is level, intense. It is not pity you see there. It is something far more complex, something forged and tempered. It is a reluctant, grudging gratitude. "My boy," he says, and his voice is a low rumble, like stones grinding together deep in the earth. He is strong because of you. That is all. He does not wait for thanks. He does not offer a single word of comfort. It's a cold companion in the quiet, a constant dull ache that reminds you of what you have lost. You are no longer useful. And in a world where utility is the only measure of a person's worth, you are becoming nothing. Shame is a weapon as old as any sword, and isolation is its sharpest edge. In the suffocating closeness of a village like this, to be cast out is a kind of death long before your body fails. Your entire life, your very identity, was built on your purpose. You were the healer, the knowledgeable one. But here, in this hut that smells of wet wool and despair, the prayer goes unanswered. The words are meaningless. You could fill this woman with every tincture and tea you possess, and it would do nothing. Her sickness is not in her blood or her humors. It is in her bones, a deep, weary ache for sustenance. Her body is a candle that has run out of wax, and your herbs are just sparks thrown at a dying wick. You remember the summer rains, not the gentle, life-giving showers that plump the barley, but a relentless, gray assault. She doesn't know of the invisible things that swarm in the dirt, the demons of the wound. But you do. You wouldn't call it hygiene. You have no word for germs. You only have observation. A library of memory filled with 1,000 failures. You have seen that clean wounds, washed with wine or boiled water, often heal. You have seen that dirty wounds, packed with dung or cobwebs, as some healers suggest, almost always fester, swell, and steal the life away. You stand at the edge of the light, in the place where the tamed world of man meets the untamed world of God's wilder thoughts. You are the bridge, and you know with a certainty that chills you more than the morning air, that bridges are the first things people burn when they are afraid. The seeds are a promise of peace. You think of the old weaver, his hands now too twisted by age to work the loom, who lies awake each night staring into the darkness, haunted by the faces of children he has outlived. You are planting him a few hours of oblivion, a small mercy of sleep. Your work is a quiet, stubborn argument against the finality of God's will. It is a statement, spoken not in prayers, but in dirt and sweat, that suffering is not something to be merely endured, but to be fought with a leaf. You sat with her through a long night when her youngest was born, your hands guiding the small, slippery body into the world. 2 weeks ago, you saw that same husband, his face contorted with a grief so profound it looked like rage, screaming your name as he cast a fistful of grave dirt at your home. Now she walks toward you. Her steps are small, her head bowed. He doesn't offer it. He pushes it into your hands, an order, not a gift. Your fingers, clumsy with cold and fear, close around it. It is heavy, and it is warm. You stare at the bundle, then back at his unreadable face. Slowly, you peel back a corner of the cloth. Steam, fragrant and impossible, rises to meet you. Inside rests a small loaf of dark bread, the crust still crisp from the oven. Beside it, a chunk of hard, pale cheese, its scent sharp and salty. It is a king's ransom. It is a week of life. A precious pinch of salt in a twist of cloth for helping set a farmer's broken leg. Your skill was your currency. Your knowledge was your bread. You were the hub of a wheel of desperate, quiet bargains that kept the village turning. Now the wheel has stopped. The flow of life, of sustenance, has been cut off at its source. The hunger is no longer a distant story you hear about from your neighbors during a hard winter. It is a gnawing, hollow presence inside your own belly. You see the pale, bluish tint to her lips, the cracked skin at the corners of her mouth. Her eyes, when they flicker open, are not bright with fever, but dull with an emptiness that terrifies you more than any pestilence. Your satchel is full of remedies: yarrow to staunch a bleeding, willow bark to quiet a pain, chamomile to grant a moment's sleep. They are the words to a prayer you have known your whole life, the accumulated wisdom of your mother and her mother before her. While learned men in stone monasteries unroll crumbling scrolls, debating the philosophies of Galen and the humors of the blood, you are here, practicing a raw, intuitive science on the edge of a knife. They argue about words. You fight against death. You move to the basin, the lye soap harsh and biting as you scrub your hands, turning them red. You unstop a small flask of wine, not for drinking, but for cleansing. The mother gives a small choked gasp, seeing you pour the precious liquid over the tweezers and the blade. To them, knowledge not sanctioned by the church, gleaned from the wild, shadowed places of the world, smells faintly of sulfur. It reeks of a pact made with something other than God. You are the keeper of their bodies, while the priest is the keeper of their souls. but you know the two are not so easily separated. A body racked with pain has little room for prayer. A soul terrified of death will seek any salvation it can find. You are planting a remedy for a pain that has not yet happened. You are tending a future ache. Next, the calendula. Their seeds curved like tiny petrified worms. You picture them blooming, small suns of brilliant orange. You see them crushed into a salve, a golden balm to soothe the angry red of a burn or the weeping rash on a baby's skin. Each seed pushed into the soil is a specific name, a specific face, a specific cry in the night that you have heard before and will hear again. The last are for Valerian. To apologize would be to admit they were wrong, that their terror made them cruel. And terror, you are learning, is never wrong in the moment it is felt. It simply is. They needed a reason for the graves they dug, a face to put on the shapeless dread that stole their children in the night. Your face was convenient. A woman detaches herself from the door of her hovel. It is Elspeth. You tended to her husband's leg last harvest when he took a fall from a ladder. His eyes, however, are clear and they are fixed on you. He says nothing. The silence stretches, thick and heavy as the iron he works. He is a mountain of a man, smelling of coal smoke and sweat and something metallic and clean. He could break you with one hand. He could crush the life from you and feel no more remorse than he does when plunging a hot blade into water. He simply watches you, his presence, a physical weight in the cold air. Then, his other hand comes up. It holds a bundle wrapped in rough, undyed cloth. This is how they build the wall, not with stone or wood, but with averted eyes and frozen mouths. The silence is louder than any shouted accusation. It is a shroud they are weaving around you, thread by invisible thread. Back in your cottage, the hunger begins. It is a stranger in your own home. Before, your small pantry was never truly empty. A clutch of eggs for a poultice that drew the poison from a blacksmith's burn. A dark, heavy loaf of bread for the charm that soothed a colicky babe. The poultice you press against the woman's chest is warm, smelling of mustard seed and repentance. But the skin beneath is cold. It is a damp, stubborn cold that seems to seep up from the packed earth of the floor itself. Her name is Elena, and her breath is a shallow, rattling thing, a moth beating its last against a closed window. You look at her face, and you do not see the flux or the lung fever or any of the familiar demons you know had a name. You see the hollows beneath her cheekbones, stark as sculpted stone. This knowledge wasn't learned from a book. It was earned in blood and bone. You don't know the Latin names for the delicate scaffolding of bones inside his tiny hand, but you know precisely where they are. You can feel their shape through his skin. You know how they move against each other. And most importantly, you know the safe, empty spaces that lie between them. Your knowledge is not theoretical. It is visceral. There are no copies, no scriptures to defend it. It lives and dies with you, and with the handful of women like you, scattered through the shires like lonely stars. This connection is your power. It is the reason they send for you in the dead of night, their fear of death overriding their fear of you. But it is also the root of their suspicion, the whispers that follow you in the market, the way they cross themselves when you pass. It is your private apothecary, a sanctuary of control in a world governed by chaos. Your back is a single, hot wire of pain, pulled taut from your neck to your tailbone. You ignore it. You have to. You pour a few tiny seeds into your calloused, dirt-caked palm. They are almost weightless, smaller than a flea, yet each one holds a universe of possibility. Feverfew. You press a single seed into a shallow furrow with your thumb. You think of John the Fletcher's wife, her head clasped in her hands as if to keep it from splitting in two. They check the sky, the path, the faces of their neighbors, searching for the lingering shadow of the sickness. They are testing the world to see if it is safe again. Their eyes slide over your hut. They do not land on you, not directly. It is a deliberate avoidance, a refusal to acknowledge. There are no words of apology for the stones thrown at your shutters, for the cross chalked on your door, for the whispers that named you a witch, a poisoner, the cause of the miasma. You freeze, a gasp caught in your throat. Your mind floods with images of stones and fists, of being dragged to the priest, of the final terrible sermon. This is it. The hunger, the cold, the fear. It all ends here, in the dirt, under a stranger's punishing grip. You flinch, coiling into yourself, a wordless plea already forming on your lips. You force yourself to turn, to face the executioner. It is Thomas, the smith. His face is a mask of grim soot and solemnity, his great beard hiding whatever expression might live on his mouth. Elsbeth, whose youngest you helped pull into this world on a cold Samhain night, suddenly finds the hem of her tunic fascinating. Old man Hemlock, who just last month praised the salve you made for his aching joints, spits a thick gob of phlegm into the dust near your feet. He doesn't look at you. No one does. They look through you, past you, at the ground, at the sky, anywhere but at the space you now occupy. Mothers with toddlers clutching their skirts instinctively pull them closer. A small, protective gesture that lands like a physical blow. Your successes, like Thomas's cured colic, are temporary comforts, soon forgotten like last year's harvest. But your failures are permanent. They become monuments in the village memory. Old Man Hemlock, Little Ilera, their names are now stones laid at your feet, a foundation for the whispers that will inevitably begin. The whispers that say your power is weak. The whispers that say your herbs are failing. And the darker whispers, the ones that will begin in the tavern over bitter ale, that perhaps your failure isn't failure at all, but a sign of something far, far worse. A small, wickedly sharp knife, its handle worn smooth by your father's hand, the same one he used for whittling birds from scraps of wood. To the mother, who watches you with wide, terrified eyes, they are instruments of torture. She sees a spike to pierce, pincers to rip, a blade to maim. She flinches as if you had laid out hot coals. But you see them differently. In your hands, they are not metal. They are extensions of your will, extensions of your very fingers, guided by a deep, almost holy understanding of the body. The frantic search in your bag for the dried bundle you carry. Your hands working on instinct, crushing the leaves, pressing the poultice to the wound. The slow, miraculous halt. The scent of the yarrow now is the scent of a life that was almost lost. You touch its delicate flowers, a gesture of profound gratitude. This is an intelligence that lives in your hands, in your nose, in the vast unwritten library of your memory. It is a fragile thing. A fever could burn it from your mind. A blow to the head could shatter it. The earth is cool against your knees. a damp cold that seeps through the rough-spun wool of your tunic and into your bones. Behind you, the wattle and daub walls of your cottage are turning gold in the last light of the day. Before you is the forest, a deep, breathing darkness that swallows the sun. But here, in this small, tilled rectangle of earth, you are in your own kingdom. This is not the common vegetable patch, not the place for turnips and leeks that feed the belly. This is a place that feeds survival itself. The ever-present chorus of slow, rattling death has finally faded, and the quiet it leaves behind is unnerving, hollow, like a bell that has just finished tolling. You watch from your doorway as the village uncurls itself. They do not burst forth in celebration. They creep. One by one, doors that have been barred from the inside creak open. Faces, pale and thin from a diet of fear and stale bread, blink in the muted light. They look like creatures disturbed from a long hibernation. Their movements stiff, their eyes skittish. The sun, weak and low in the sky, offers no warmth, only a pale, judgmental light that filters through the skeletal branches of the ash trees. You are an animal, digging for sustenance at the margins, and you can feel the eyes of the village on your back, even when no one is there. Every snapped twig is the sound of approaching judgment. Every whisper of wind carries the echo of your name, spat like a curse. A shadow falls over you, sudden and complete. A hand, heavy as a blacksmith's hammer, lands on your shoulder. It's an absence, a void where the sounds of need and gratitude used to live. You need water. The bucket is light, its wooden staves dry and loose. The journey to the village well feels a mile long, though it has never changed. As you round the corner of the weaver's cottage, you see them, a small gathering of women, their chatter a familiar, comforting burble, like the stream behind the church. But the moment your shadow falls near them, the stream runs dry. Conversations don't just stop. They are strangled mid-word. You see the question forming in the tight set of his jaw, the silent, terrible accusation. Why her? Why could you save me, but not her? He says nothing. He doesn't have to. His silence is an indictment, a judgment that hangs in the air between you, more damning than any shout. You are fighting a dragon with a wooden sword, and everyone is watching. They do not see the dragon, the invisible, monstrous force of nature that devours the weak and the strong alike. They only see you and your splintered, useless weapon. The mother looks from the hand to you, her eyes begging for a miracle you're not sure you can provide. You turn from her terror and lay out your tools on a clean linen cloth. They are not the polished instruments of a physician in a great city. They are simple, almost crude. A long, fine-pointed needle, its tip hardened to a blue-black in the embers of your fire. A pair of bronze tweezers, their grip still true, a gift from a traveling tinker years ago. It is a promise, this plant. A promise that not everything that is broken must stay that way. You rise and move on, your eyes scanning, reading the living text around you. Then you see it. A patch of yarrow, its leaves as fine and feathery as a bird's wing. You pause, and the memory of the night rushes back. The gush of blood, sudden and terrifying, after the child was born. The mother's eyes wide with panic. A sound that does not belong to the forest's creatures. It comes from the shadows just beyond the clearing, deliberate and close. The peace of the morning shatters like glass. You freeze, every muscle tight, the basket suddenly a leaden weight. The fear you thought was washed away comes rushing back, cold and sharp as a needle to the heart. You are not alone in these woods, and you know, with a certainty that chills your bones, that whoever is watching you is not here to gather flowers. The sun is a weak, watery broth, but it is sun nonetheless. For a week, it has washed the gray damp from the sky, and you feel its touch on the threshold of your hut like a hesitant pardon. The air, for the first time in what feels like a lifetime, tastes clean. It doesn't scrape your throat raw. It doesn't carry the wet, heavy rasp of a village drowning in its own lungs. The coughing has stopped. That is the loudest sound now, the silence where the hacking used to be. The cold seeps up from the ground, a damp chill that burrows deep into your bones. Your fingers, raw and scraped, scrabble in the hard-packed earth at the edge of the woods. You are hunting for pignuts, for the tough, stringy roots of burdock, anything to quiet the hollow ache in your belly. Each woody prize feels like a failure, a bitter reminder of the wheat and barley you can no longer buy, the communal pot you can no longer approach. The smell of damp leaves and decay is the smell of your new life. The weeds are the first to tell you the story. They grow bold now, high and damp against your ankles as you walk the 100 paces from the tree line to your door. A path, once beaten into the earth by the anxious feet of neighbors, is now returning to the wild. A silken spider's web, a perfect and undisturbed jewel of dew, is strung across the entrance to your herb garden. No one has been here. No one has come with a fevered child, a festering cut, or a husband's racking cough. The silence that greets you isn't peace. You brewed the gentlest teas. You made the weakest, kindest poultices. You whispered charms her mother taught you. But the sickness took her as easily as a wolf takes a lamb. Thomas turns to look at you. His eyes are not filled with the pleading hope you saw before. They are vast, empty pits. The gratitude is gone. The trust has curdled into something cold and questioning. In his gaze, you are not a healer who fought and lost. You are a promise that was broken. You simply nod, your face a calm lake in her storm, and gesture for them to come into the flickering warmth of the fire. She places the boy on the low stool, her hands trembling so badly she can barely uncurl his fist. His right hand is twice the size of his left, a puffball of angry red flesh, slick with a feverish sweat. In the center of his palm, but jagged black line disappears into the swollen skin. A splinter of old, hard oak, driven deep. Your knowledge is written here, in the veins of leaves and the grain of wood. Deeper in, where the light is green and hazy, you kneel. Your knees sink into the soft moss, and you greet an old friend. Comfrey. The villagers call it knitbone, and they say the name with a mixture of hope and fear. Its broad, hairy leaves feel like a craftsman's rough hands. You have seen it work miracles, a shattered shin mending clean and true, a broken arm made whole again. You run a thumb over a leaf, a silent thank you. The story of the earth's resilience, of life's fierce, unbreakable grip. Each root and leaf is a secret passed from a grandmother to her daughter, a whisper that has outlasted plagues and kings and the endless grinding wheel of seasons. You turn to leave the clearing, to carry your quiet power back to a world that both needs and despises it. That's when you hear it. Not the scurry of a squirrel or the sigh of the wind. It is the sharp, clean snap of a dry twig under a heavy foot. the name that is both a curse and a prayer. And you do not see a man of God. You see a craftsman, and you are the wood he is carving into a cross for others to cling to. The rain falls harder, plastering your cloak to your body, and you have never, in all your life, felt so utterly and terribly alone. She raises a trembling hand, her finger pointing directly at your heart, and she says your name. Not a whisper anymore, a declaration, a verdict. And in that single word, you feel the world you knew crack down the middle, leaving you on the wrong side of everything. 2 days later, the sickness takes Alara. She is 7. Just last spring, you treated her father, a burly Fletcher named Thomas, for a gut-wrenching colic that had him twisted in agony. You fed him chamomile and fennel until the cramping subsided, and he looked at you as if you'd performed a miracle, pressing a silver penny into your hand with shaking, grateful fingers. Now he stands beside his daughter's small form, a giant of a man made hollow by grief. Ilara's face is a pale, porcelain mask, her little chest still. You did everything. The door splinters inward against the frame, not from force, but from a desperate, frantic push. A woman stands there, her face a mask of rain-streaked panic, clutching a small, writhing body to her chest. The sound he makes is not a cry, but a continuous, high-pitched wail of agony that seems to tear at the very air in your small cottage. You don't need her to speak. You see it in the way she holds him, in the protective, useless curl of his own fingers. You see the tree, but you also see the end of a fever. You see a poultice to ease the aches of a man who has spent too long scything in the fields. The priest would call it a gift from God, and you would not disagree. But he would not know how to ask for it. He would not know which bark to peel, or how to boil it, or when. His knowledge is written in a language you cannot read, on pages you will never touch. In their world of rigid order and pronouncements from on high, they have forgotten the most essential truth. Survival does not listen to sermons. It does not care for status. It is a practical, dirty, desperate business. You stand, the basket heavy now, a treasure trove of weeds. The light shifts, and for a moment, a single perfect shaft of sunlight breaks through the canopy, illuminating the swirling dust motes and the ghost of your own breath in the cool air. You are holding an entire apothecary in your arm. Not just cures, but stories. It is in the lungful of air you just drew, and the one that will follow. You are not what they whisper you are. You are a survivor. That is the only name that has ever truly fit. And as you finally lift the heavy bucket, a sound cuts through the morning quiet. It's not a scream of fear. It is a shout of panic, of desperation. The sound of running feet on the hard-packed earth, coming closer, coming for you. And a voice, breathless and raw, yells the only name they ever use when they are desperate. A scapegoat offered not to heaven, but to the fragile stability of this parish. In his own mind, he is not a villain. A villain revels in cruelty. Father Michael is simply a shepherd, and a shepherd's job is to protect the flock. He will do anything to keep them safe, to keep them together. And right now, he is protecting them from a wolf. He is more than happy to let them imagine in your place. You look at the man before you, the man who blessed you as a child, who gave your mother her last rites. Through the small window, you see his wife pull her children back from the glass. You are no longer their wise woman, their cunning folk. You are becoming their sin eater. They are loading you with the weight of their own powerlessness, their own mortality, their own blinding fear of a world that God does not seem to control. At the edge of the market square, Ilara stands, her face a mask of ravaged grief. She sees you. The entire square seems to hold its breath. The chickens stop scratching in the dirt. The blacksmith's hammer falls silent. You sit by his straw pallet, wiping his brow with a cool, damp cloth. His eyes are milky, unfocused. He does not know you are there. In the deepest hour of the night, when the only sounds are the drumming rain and the crackle of the fire, the whistling simply stops. The silence he leaves behind is a physical weight, a gaping hole in the fabric of the village. You close his eyes and pull the rough-spun blanket over his face. But you cannot cover the silence. It follows you out into the mud and the dark. We must not presume to know his plan. He turns then, a slow pivot on the dusty earth, and jiffs back the way he came, his black cassock shrinking until it is once again just a smudge against the green. You are left alone with the scrape of your mortar, the scent of the earth, and the chilling truth that you are both selling a cure for the same disease. You just disagree on what the disease is. Is it the sickness in the body or the fear in the soul? They see the woods as a place to be passed through quickly, a haunt of wolves and things far worse. They see shadows where you see shelter. They hear monstrous whispers in the rustle of leaves that to you is a language. The priest speaks of God's love from his cold stone pulpit, but you feel it here in the resilience of a sapling pushing through a fallen log. Your fingers, still faintly stained with the blood of birth, trail along the rough bark of a willow leaning over the stream. But you have seen the Lord's wife, her face a mask of polite disdain in the daylight. Send a servant to your door in the dead of night, a silver coin wrapped in cloth, her voice a desperate whisper. My child burns with fever. The physician has bled him twice, and he only grows weaker. Can you help? They look down upon your wisdom until they are looking up from their knees. They scorn the dandelion until it is the only thing that stands between them and the abyss. You look down at your hands, still clutching the well's cold stone. They are not the hands of a witch. They are chapped, stained with dirt and chlorophyll, the knuckle swollen, but they are instruments of knowing. They know the precise pressure to set a broken bone. They know the feel of a baby turning in the womb. They know the weight of a life held in balance. The reflection in the well is a ghost, an echo of other people's terror. It is not your truth. Your truth is in these hands. It isn't about God and the devil. It is about power. It is about the chilling, quiet mechanics of control. Every villager who spits your name, every mother who clutches a cross when you walk by, is a soul fleeing from the terrifying randomness of God's will and running straight back into the safety of his church, his rituals, his sanctioned faith. Their fear of your folk magic, of the old ways you represent, is the whip he uses to herd them back into his pen. You are a small, necessary sacrifice. You, with your solitary life on the edge of the village, with your knowledge of roots and leaves that sits uncomfortably close to magic in their minds. You, who live so near the woods, that place of ancient fears and shadowed things. You are the perfect canvas onto which they can paint their terror. Your knowledge, once a comfort, is now proof of your communion with the unseen. Your solitude is no longer independence, it is secrecy. You walk past the baker's hut. The door, usually open, is now shut. This sickness has a will. It is a beast with teeth, and your herbs are nothing more than brittle twigs against its hide. Old Man Hemlock is the first to go. You've known him your entire life, his face a roadmap of wrinkles, his hands gnarled and stained from a lifetime of tanning leather. You remember him giving you a piece of dried apple when you were a child, his laughter as loud and rough as a rock slide. Now, his laugh is gone, replaced by a breath that catches and hitches, a shallow, whistling sound with every exhale. You both stand on opposite sides of a deathbed and trade in the same currency, hope. But your currencies are not equal. His is a vast, eternal treasure promised in the hereafter. Yours is a handful of copper coins to be spent today, right now, on a few more breaths, a few more sunrises. His is infinite. Yours is frighteningly, beautifully temporary. He looks once more at the herbs swaying gently in the draft from the open door. The Lord gives and the Lord takes away, Ilara, he says, his voice a final quiet toll of a bell. The sun is only a rumor, a faint blush behind the black teeth of the eastern hills. The air is sharp and carries the scent of secrets, of damp earth, of rot that is not death, but the promise of new life. This is your cathedral. The towering oaks and ancient beeches are its pillars, the canopy of leaves its vaulted ceiling, dappled with the first hints of dawn. You walk with a quiet foot, a pilgrim in a holy land that others fear. It is a knowledge that can be burned, a wisdom that can be locked away. Your wisdom is different. It is wild. It grows in the cracks, in the forgotten corners, between the cobblestones of the market square, and on the unmarked graves at the edge of the churchyard. It is stubborn. It is common. It is trampled underfoot 100 times a day, and springs back every single morning. It is a weed. They call it superstition, women's folly, the ramblings of the unlettered. You have guided more life into this world than any mother in the village. Your hands the first thing a newborn has ever felt. Your sense of self is a fragile mosaic, pieced together from the desperate gratitude of the healed, the raw fear of the ignorant, and the quiet, solid wisdom of the earth itself. The knowledge that willow bark chews away a fever, that cobwebs clean and thick will seal a wound, that the moon governs a woman's blood. This is not witchcraft. This is the grammar of the world. They are not an admission. They are worse. They are a justification, a sermon on the utility of your suffering. He did not light the fire of their hatred. You know this. He did not have to. He simply found a town full of kindling, fear, loss, superstition, and chose not to bring the water. He has stood by, silent and watchful, and warmed his hands by the blaze of your condemnation. You see it now, with a clarity that is as cold and sharp as a shard of ice against the skin. This isn't about good and evil. It is not a sickness that stole her child. It was a curse. It was you. You see it in their faces. The fear in this village, once a simmering pot of hardship and prayer, has boiled over. And they need somewhere for the scalding terror to go. They need a monster to explain the inexplicable horror of a small, cold body. The dark alchemy of fear is at work, transmuting their sorrow into blame, their suspicion into a cold, hard certainty. This is how a healer becomes a curse, how a neighbor becomes a nightmare. You mix pungent mustard seed with warm animal fat, spreading the thick yellow paste onto a scrap of linen. You lay this poultice on a laboring chest, feeling the weak flutter of a heart beneath your palm, hoping the sharp heat will penetrate the flesh and drive the cold sickness out. The families watch you. their faces pale and pinched in the flickering firelight. They see the surety in your movements, a confidence you no longer feel. You are performing a ritual of healing, but you can feel its power failing, like a prayer spoken to an empty sky. You, with your stained fingers and knowledge of roots and leaves, offer something far more immediate, and in his eyes, far more dangerous. A remedy for the body, a brief delay of the inevitable. His power is built on the immense, terrifying mystery of what comes after death. Your power is built on the small, vital mysteries of this life. Why this leaf cools a fever, why that root eases a pain. You are not his enemy in a way he could ever preach about from the pulpit. You are his rival. The sack of salt is a dense, reassuring weight against your hip. It feels like a life. The boy's first cry still echoes in your ears, a sound of victory against the quiet, grasping dark. His mother, exhausted but radiant, had pressed the small pouch into your hand with a reverence you rarely see outside of communion. Salt, not coin. Salt preserves, it purifies, it gives taste to the bland toil of existence. A worthy price for a son. But sleep is a luxury you cannot afford. While the village snores behind wood and wattle, you are walking, and the flowers, the bright, unapologetic heads of gold, you gather them by the dozen, their soft petals brushing against your skin. In these, there is sweetness. There is the promise of wine, a pale honeyed liquor that will hold the memory of this sunlit moment deep into the cold, black heart of January. This is the knowledge you carry. It isn't written in the gilded books chained to desks in the monastery. That knowledge is a fragile, precious thing, penned in a language you cannot speak, guarded by stone walls and men who believe the world is flat. They say you consort with shadows, because you are the one they call for when life is slipping away in the darkest hour before dawn. Your silhouette framed in their doorway, like a specter of death and hope all at once. Is that who you are? A collection of their fears? A vessel for all the things they cannot explain. The face in the water ripples, disturbed by a falling leaf. The image shatters into 1,000 dark pieces, and then, slowly reforms. You have seen more death than any soldier on the king's battlefields. When he speaks, his voice is unnervously calm, as flat and gray as the day itself. Grief is a wild animal, Ilara, he says. It thrashes and bites and cannot be reasoned with. It needs a cage. He finally lowers his gaze, not to your eyes, but to the dark soil clinging to the hem of your dress. Sometimes, people will build that cage from suspicion. It is an ugly thing, but it is strong. The world stops. The rain, the shovel, your own ragged breath, it all fades to a distant hum. His words are not a denial. That herbal tea you gave the family for their winter coughs? It smelled sour, she insists. A potion, not a remedy. Those words you sometimes mutter when you are gathering herbs, the old names for the plants, they were incantations, prayers to a darker god. Grief is a kind of madness. It cannot accept the simple, brutal truth that a child can just stop breathing. That a fever can be a fire with no one to blame. The human mind recoils from such a vacuum of meaning, and so it creates a story with a villain. Beside it, another pot simmers with horehound, its sharp, pungent aroma meant to break the grip of the phlegm that strangles the breath from your neighbors. Your hands are stained with the work, your knuckles chapped raw from the endless washing and grinding. You work until your back aches and your eyes burn from the smoke, fueled by a grim and dwindling hope. You move from one darkened, smoky hut to the next. Inside each, the air is thick with the smell of sweat, fear, and unwashed bodies. He doesn't have to mention the poultice of crushed leaves you prescribed. He doesn't have to accuse you of interfering. The silence does it for him. This is the great, unspoken war of your age, fought not on battlefields with steel, but in sick rooms with whispered prayers and boiled herbs. The church, his church, offers a glorious salvation for the soul, a map to a paradise that begins only after the heart stops beating. It is a promise for the next life. Today, Isabel's child is stuck, a stubborn traveler, unwilling to leave the warmth of the womb. Her husband, Thomas, a man whose arms can bend steel, waits outside, utterly powerless. He has faith in two things, his anvil and his God. You, a woman who communes with roots and leaves, are an uncomfortable necessity, a bargain made with the old ways in a moment of desperation. You are his last, terrifying hope. You hold a small clay pot of salve up to the dying light. Its surface is a smooth green-gold disc, perfect and silent. It is a small thing, a simple thing, but in a world awash with pain, it is everything. It is a promise, whispered against the dark, that someone is still willing to care. A handful of these, boiled into a tea, will cleanse the thick, sluggish blood of winter. It will wake up a body that has slept too long in the dark. You dig beside the stalk with a sharpened stick, your knuckles pressing into the damp soil. You work the root free, a pale, gnarled thing like a twisted finger. This holds a different power. Dried, pounded, and steeped, it can calm a stomach knotted with fear, or unbind a gut clenched by spoiled bread. It is a quiet, earthy magic that works from the inside out. You hear the whispers that follow you like smoke, blaming you for the cow that went dry, the summer storm that flattened the barley, the shadow that passed over a cradle in the night. They call you the woman who talks to plants, as if the knowledge of which root soothes a cough and which leaf staunches a bleed is a dark art whispered by demons in the woods, and not a wisdom passed down from your grandmother's hands to your mother's, and now to yours. Is this your work, Father? For a long moment, the only answer is the shovel striking a rock with a sharp, ugly clang. Jacob curses under his breath, wrestles with it. Father Michael finally turns his head, but he does not look at you. He looks past you at the gray, weeping sky. His face is gaunt, his skin pale and stretched thin over the bones. He looks tired. He looks like a man carrying the grief of his entire village on his shoulders. It began with a whisper, carried on the wind from a cottage shrouded in grief. The little girl's name was Alice, 7 years old, a life no longer than a summer's day. Her mother, Ilara, a woman you've known since she was a girl herself, is broken by a sorrow so vast it has to spill somewhere. It has spilled onto you. You hear the story as it morphs and grows, a monstrous thing fed by fear. Ilara says she saw you looking at Alice a week before the fever took hold. A strange look, she calls it now. A wet, rattling thing that seems to rise from the very soil. A sickness that settles deep in the chest and refuses to be dislodged. You live in a cloud of steam and bitter herbs. Over your small fire, a pot of mullein tea is always brewing, its earthy scent a constant, desperate prayer against the encroaching illness. You crush the dried, velvety leaves, watching them steep into a golden brown liquid you know can soothe a raw throat. It is an accusation. You simply nod, your hands busy grinding seeds in a stone mortar. The rhythmic scrape of stone on stone is the only answer you give. God's mercy is a profound gift, he continues, his eyes finally meeting yours. They are the color of a winter sky. But suffering, Ilara, is also a gift. It is a test of faith, a purification of the soul before it meets its maker. His words hang in the air, a delicate, sticky web of warning. He doesn't have to say your name again. The room smells of blood, sweat, and the pungent, earthy brew of raspberry leaf and motherwort you have simmering over the low fire. A woman's blend, a secret passed down through whispers from your own grandmother. This is the precipice where your life is lived. In this suffocating space between a prayer and a gasp, you are either a vessel of God's mercy or a handmaiden of the devil's work. There is no in-between. Every birth you attend is a trial. If mother and child live, you are clever. If they die, you are cursed. It is the human impulse to walk into the dark spaces of another's suffering, armed not with certainty, but with knowledge, intuition, and a quiet, stubborn compassion. To do so even when the world is full of its own darkness, even when you are offered no guarantee of thanks, and even when the person you save today may be the one who whispers your name in condemnation tomorrow. They fear the shadow in the woods, the unknown, the ancient, the untamed, but they still rely on the one who walks within it to gather their remedies. Hundreds of them, their heads lifted to a sun they can only feel through the thick canopy above. To the village priest, they are a flaw in God's tapestry, a sign of untended earth. To the reeve, they are a pest, a stubborn weed to be cursed and uprooted. They see a nuisance. You kneel, and you see a miracle. Your fingers, the nails permanently underlined with dirt, gently trace the jagged edge of a leaf. You pluck it, bring it to your lips. The taste is sharp, fiercely bitter. This is the flavor of strength. You lean closer until your breath fogs the water's surface, and for a terrifying second, you try to see what they see. The witch, the crone. You see the way the children fall silent and scurry away when you walk through the village square, their games dying on their lips. You feel the weight of the priest's glare during Sunday Mass, his sermon on the devil's handmaidens seeming to be aimed directly at the back of your head. You've practiced them in the dark, whispered them to the dying embers of your fire, but now they feel clumsy, foreign. The whispers, you say, your voice tight, strained. The talk in the market, the way they look at me, the way they pull their children away when I pass. You take a breath, the cold air burning your lungs. They say I brought the sickness, that my knowledge is a curse from the devil. You finally ask the question that has kept you from sleep, the question that feels like its own kind of sickness. The air has changed. It's the same cold, damp air that always settles in the valley, thick with the smell of wet earth and wood smoke. But now, it carries something else, a charge, a tension that prickles the hairs on your arms. The familiar sounds of the village, the blacksmith's hammer, the chatter at the well, are muted, strained. When you walk past the common green, conversations stop. Heads turn, not in greeting, but in appraisal. Eyes follow you, and then quickly look away, as if catching your gaze is a risk. The autumn rains have come, not with the grace of a gentle washing, but with the cold, driving persistence of a siege. They seep through the wattle and daub of the huts, turn the lanes to sucking mud, and hang a perpetual dampness in the air that clings to your wool cloak and works its way into the bones. With the damp comes the cough. It starts as a whisper in the village, a dry tickle in the throat of an elder mending a fishing net. A single bark from a child chasing a stray dog. But now, it is a chorus, his hands, pale and soft, clasped before him as if in prayer, or perhaps to keep from touching anything. He doesn't look at you, not at first. His gaze sweeps over the interior of your small home, a silent inventory of your sins. It rests on the bundles of herbs hanging from the low rafters, their shadows dancing like tiny, hanged men. He speaks, and his voice is deceptively soft, a murmur meant to sound like guidance but which lands like a stone. "The widow Agnes tells me her son's fever has broken," he says. "It is not a question." Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. Let's begin and live the life they never got to finish. You are the village healer, the cunning woman, the one they call for when the priest's prayers have met only silence. Your hands, stained with the green of crushed yarrow and the brown of dried earth, are surprisingly steady as you press a cool, damp cloth to Isabel's forehead. They say a time will come when people no longer fear the devil's breath in a cough. But will they not fear the unseen thing that travels on the air, the terrifying word whispered in a sterile room, the cold statistical probability of their own end? They will replace superstition with science, but the fundamental terror of the body's rebellion will remain. They will still seek out healers, men and women in white coats instead of homespun wool, handing them their fear like a fragile, desperate offering, hoping it can be traded for a cure. The role you play is timeless. Every drop of water clinging to the tip of a fern leaf is a tiny, perfect jewel. The world wasn't destroyed, it was only washed. The fear that had lived behind your eyes for days, a frantic, cornered thing, has finally quieted, lulled by the rhythm of the rain and the simple fact of the dawn. You push past a curtain of dripping hazel branches, and there, in a small clearing, you see them. A splash of defiant gold against the bruised green and brown of the forest floor. Dandelions. The flesh around the eyes is a spider web of fine lines, not from laughter, but from long nights spent squinting in the flicker of a single tallow candle, grinding herbs with a stone pestle. Your hair, once the color of good soil, is a wild tangle of brown and frost. It is the face of a woman who has seen 40 winters, and in this world, that is a lifetime. You have outlived your mother, your father, 2 of your own children taken by the flux, and more men than you can count. His attention is a prayer offered only to the grave. The rhythmic scrape and thud of Jacob's work is the only sound between you. It is the sound of a heart beating its last. You clear your throat, and the sound is small, swallowed by the drizzle. "Father." He inclines his head, a gesture so slight it is almost an illusion. His gaze remains fixed on the growing wound in the ground. The words have been stones in your throat for days. He is not here with medicine or food. He is here to collect the church tithe, the Lord's tax, a share of a harvest that never was. You watch as a man, his face a mask of gray despair, offers the reeve his last scrawny chicken. The reeve takes it without a word. makes a note in his book, and moves on. He is not a man. He is a force, as inexorable as the rain that started it all. He is coming closer, and you know your own door is next. This is a truth more terrifying than any demon the priest shrieks about from his pulpit. He speaks of damnation in the next world. You hold the power of it in this one, right here in a small clay pot. They see a healer, a woman with a knack for herbs. They will never know the crushing weight of the knowledge you carry, or the constant, silent prayer you offer up to any god that might be listening. Let me not make a mistake. Let my power remain a secret, even from myself. He will not cross it. You can see the dust on his worn leather shoes, but he will not bring it into your home, just as he will not allow the scent of your world to cling to him. And your world has a potent scent. It smells of damp soil and drying yarrow, of crushed mint and the sharp tang of willow bark simmering over the fire. It is the smell of the earth's secrets, and to him, it is the smell of paganism. You believe demons live in the fog that rolls off the river at dawn. Your town blames the neighbor's scrawny goats for the summer sickness. Welcome to the Middle Ages. Here, survival is a prayer whispered into the dark, and life is a flickering candle flame, beautiful and terrifyingly fragile. If you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. We are going to live inside these moments to understand the hopes and fears that mirror our own across a chasm of 700 years. You sit, cleaning your tools by the firelight, your hands moving with the slow, practiced grace of a lifetime spent in service to the body's betrayals. You are the village's secret keeper. You are the archivist of its pain. You know whose back is failing from a lifetime of stooping in the fields, whose child is frail as a bird's wing, whose heart is broken by a grief they cannot speak aloud. Does the world ever truly evolve past this? Or does it just rebrand its fears? The air in your lungs is new. It's been scoured clean by the storm, carrying the scent of whetstone and the deep, dark perfume of resurrected earth. Your bare feet press into the mud at the forest's edge, the cold a welcome shock that reminds you that you are still here, still breathing. The weight of the wicker basket is a familiar comfort against your hip, a simple tool for a simple task. But today it feels like an anchor to a world that almost spun away from you. You've never seen your own face clearly. Not really. Polished steel is a lord's luxury, a warped and foggy thing, even then. True glass mirrors are a fantasy, a story told by merchants who speak of Venice and the strange habits of kings. Your world has no mirrors. Your identity is not something you build by looking at yourself. It is built from the reflections you see in the eyes of others. The face in the well is the one they have made for you. It is thinner than you remember, the jawline sharpened by lean seasons. He just watches, his hands tucked into the sleeves of his black cassock, a statue carved from patience and shadow. The hole Jacob digs is brutally small. Another one. The sickness has a taste for the young, it seems. The air smells of wet earth, of decay, of the cold, clean scent of rain on stone. You stop a few feet from the priest. The water drips from your hair into your eyes, and you don't bother to wipe it away. It feels appropriate, this blurring of the world. He knows you are there, but he does not turn. A failed crop is a death sentence handed down by the sky, and no amount of human wisdom can appeal the verdict. You look from the pale, silent faces of your neighbors to the dark woods that ring the village, and you wonder what dreadful things hunger will drive them to do. Then you see him, the Reeve, walking down the center of the lane, his boots heavy in the mud. He is not gaunt. His cheeks are full. He carries his ledger and stops at the door of the cottage next to Elena's. A single, carefully prepared leaf can dissolve the agony of a kidney stone, turning a grown man's screams to sighs of relief. 2 leaves, prepared differently, can stop a heart with a quiet, untraceable finality. You handle it with a fear that is almost a form of worship. This is the razor's edge you walk every day of your life. The power to heal is also the power to kill. And the only thing separating the two is your knowledge, your intention, your steady hand. You see the black gash of him first, a tear in the fabric of the green afternoon fields. Father Michael does not walk, he glides, a slow, deliberate drift of dark wool and judgment. The villagers stride with purpose when they come to your door. A child's fever, a husband's cough, a wound that will not close. Their feet pound the earth with urgency. He, however, floats above it. He never comes for medicine. He comes to remind you of your place. He stops just outside the threshold of your cottage, a foot of packed earth separating his world from yours. The air is thick with iron and fear. You are not in the smithy, but in the small, smoky room behind it, where a life is caught between 2 worlds. Her screams have long since faded into ragged, rhythmic groans that echo the clang of her husband's hammer, a sound that feels a world away. Sweat plasters her hair to her temples, and her eyes, wide and terrified, are fixed on you. They are not asking for a miracle. They are begging for an ending. You've never seen a toothbrush.